You're with Clement Manyathela
on 702.
Let's walk the talk. Streaming on the Prime Media Plus app.
DSTV channel 856.
92.7 and 106 FM.
7 minutes after 9 o'clock. Dumelang, happy Monday. Welcome to the Clement Manyathela show. It's wonderful to have you with us here on 702. I hope you're well this morning. I hope you had a great, restful, or relaxing, or fun weekend. I hope this weekend filled you with a lot of joy. Hello. If you're watching us on YouTube, I'm waving at you. Remember, you can now catch this show live on YouTube. You can listen and watch. It's very easy. Go to the 702 YouTube page if you want to watch how this show unfolds in a studio. We kick off the first hour of the show with the 702 open line on 011-883-0702. Your WhatsApps on 072-702-1702. It was another busy sporting weekend. Hey, did you watch the Formula One Grand Prix yesterday? Max Verstappen winning his first Formula One race this season. Or maybe you watched the Liverpool game versus Fulham. It was painful to watch Liverpool being defeated like that by Fulham. Congratulations to the queen of the Two Oceans Marathon, Gaza, who won the women's elite race on Saturday at the Two Oceans Ultra Marathon in Cape Town. She has won it, I think it's the sixth time now. Yeah, sixth time that Gaza wins the Two Oceans Ultra Marathon. Congrats to Lesotho's Khwarahlani Siutluadi for winning the men's race. Did you run the Two Oceans? How was it? A number of friends who were running it were telling me on Friday that the weather was a bit warm. They were worried about how it was going to look on Saturday morning, but it seemed like it was perfect. Please share with us how the run was in Cape Town this weekend. Give us a call or send us a WhatsApp voice note. There were protests across the world this weekend against US President Donald Trump and Elon Musk. Did I just hear you say co-president Elon Musk? Millions of people took part in the protests across all the 50 states in America. But there were also protests outside of the US. They were protesting against what some organizers described as a hostile takeover and attacks on American rights and freedoms. But Donald Trump is not fazed at all, even on his decision on tariffs. As we discussed them last week, Elon Musk doesn't seem to agree with him on tariffs. His own deputy, J.D. Vance, wasn't in support of this policy in 2017. And now, shame, he has to sit there and applaud it, even when he has on many occasions disagreed that this is the way that America should go. But we need to now pay attention to how countries are going to be responding. I was surprised to hear on Eyewitness News this morning that the Zimbabwean president has announced his government will suspend all tariffs that are levied on goods originating from the United States. So he says that this is intended to facilitate the expansion of American exports within the Zimbabwean market, and while simultaneously promoting the growth of Zimbabwean exports that are destined for the United States. And I see that there are some Zimbabweans that are pretty excited about this decision. They believe that this is going to bring the prices down for them. But the question really is, how is Trump going to respond? He did say last week that the tariffs are negotiable. So if the countries cut their own tariffs on the US, he's prepared to lower the duties. So will he lower or cut these tariffs on Zimbabwe, seeing that President Emmerson Mnangagwa has decided to take this drastic step to appease him? And what impact will it make, seeing that, the Zimbabwean government doesn't really do a lot of business with the US. I think in 2024, the total goods trade between the United States and Zimbabwe amounted to just over $100 million US. US exports to Zimbabwe were valued at just over $43 or so million. Why? And you look at Zimbabwean exports to America totaling just over $60 million. And I wonder what you make of how Zimbabwe has responded to these tariffs. I think a lot of countries will respond differently. China has already responded and say, well, we're going to fight back. The European Union said, we are going to also fight back and issue tariffs against the US, even though Donald Trump, I saw yesterday, he was saying, Europe is coming to the table now. There are countries, though, that want to negotiate. Speaking of tariffs, did you hear what the DA leader, John Steenhuisen, said over the weekend?
We did receive a letter from business, indeed. And I think we've seen the market's reaction to a government without the DA. R1 trillion rand wiped off the JSE just as a result of a market reaction to a potential that the DA would no longer be in government.
R1 trillion wiped off the JSE just because there's a potential the DA may not be included in the GNU. Are you kidding me? Because of the fears that the DA could be out of the GNU, R1 trillion wiped off from the JSE. You know, it's so embarrassing sometimes how the rand and the markets are weaponized to legitimize or pressurize, in this context, the inclusion of the DA in the GNU. Because that, to an extent, speaks to also the lack of understanding of global financial markets by these politicians. Because if there was an understanding, there would be a realization, even by John Steenhuisen, that the losses on the JSE are a result of far more consequential things. Recession fears, there's trade wars now, and these tariffs that were announced by Donald Trump last week. That's what sparked a JSE meltdown, not just this potential that the DA may be excluded from the GNU. But that's what politicians want you to believe. And if you don't do your own research and you do your own reading, you're going to fall for the scams.
Clement Manyathela, streaming on the Prime Media Plus app.
DSTV channel 856,
92.7
and 106 FM.
Good morning, Clemmy. Happy Monday to you, your producers, and the 702 listeners. This is Flores from the Western Cape. I think we are in for a beautiful, exciting F1 race this year. Strap in, guys. Max Verstappen, all he showed the McLarens was his backside. And I said it before and I'll say it again. These three are the guys who are going to go in for the kill. Yeah. Well done to Ferrari, Lewis Hamilton, but Piastri, Norris, and Max Verstappen, those three are going to dominate the podium. Wow. Construction is going to the McLarens, and Verstappen is going to be a champion again. Have a good job. Bye-bye.
Morning, Clement. It's Paulie here. So, I did my first 2 Ocean this weekend. Everything was fine. The weather was good. But, the hills, they show me flames. But I managed to do 5:28. It was my first take. So, when I come again next day, that's why I will be chasing 5:28. Thank you.
Look, Mr. Manyathela, I'm listening to Steenhuisen regarding the issue of rent. You see, this thing of rent, I think, is used against us black people. So it means then the rent must impose decisions on us to say who's supposed to lead us as South Africans. So they've got their preference. It means then just see their politicians. So I think we, as South Africans, we need to take that notion of Vulam Koyan to say, this rand must fall, then we will pick it up. Let it fall, then we will pick it up, because honestly speaking, we cannot be held at ransom because of these people who are in there. Let them take their investment and go wherever they want to go. Then we'll recover and recoup ourselves, because you cannot be held hostage by this JSC things and people with their investment. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no, that obviously would be reckless for us to take that position of let them just go, we'll pick up the rand. That's not the way to go. But equally so, it's disingenuous of politicians to want to weaponize the market reaction and the rand just so that they force their way in government. That's ridiculous. It is ridiculous that now there must be fear over, oh my God, we're scared to even take these decisions because, oh, what if the rand reacts? But also in this case, we're not even talking about the rand that's reacted to the GNU. John Steenhuisen is being disingenuous. Or it's either that, or he simply doesn't understand global financial markets. Because he wants to claim that just because there's a possibility the DA cannot be in the GNU, 1 trillion rand wiped off the JSC. Go speak to any economist and ask them if that is factual, if that is true, that because of what happened with the GNU and the ructions in the GNU last week, that's why 1 trillion rand was wiped off the JSC. That's not really the case. Either he's being disingenuous because he knows the truth, he knows what the markets were largely responding to, or he's actually taking advantage of the fact that there are some people who follow him who don't read. Which is why I said earlier, if you don't read and you do your own research, you're going to fall victim to this. Because that's what politicians do. They lie a lot. So be careful, my friends. We need to do our own reading. We need to do our own research. Otherwise, we're going to fall to these scams by the politicians. I just think that we're living under interesting times. You know, when you look at the world. I mean, last year we were talking about. Was it last year or 2 years ago? We were having a conversation about World War III. Like, are we on the precipice of World War III? And now you see the global realignment. It's just so incredible that in the next 20 years, our children are not going to believe that this is what we lived through. And I wonder, what are those interesting times that you have lived through in a global context? And did you know at the time that you were living through defining and historical times? I mean, the COVID-19 pandemic, that was a defining historical moment that will be told for decades and decades and decades to come. We'll go back to that moment. Well, some of you may mention maybe the global recession, 2008, 2009. Maybe some of you lived through that. Did you know at the time? So there are many other global events that have happened that I wonder if you've lived through them. And did you know that those experiences would be defining and would be talking about them and referencing them in years and decades to come? Let me know on 011-883-0702. WhatsApp's on 072-702-1702.
Your voice.
Your station.
Your open line.
Walk the talk with Clement Manyathela.
On 702.
Israel has admitted to mistakenly killing 15 aid workers thanks to this video that has now emerged that tells a different story to the one that the Israeli army told as the reason why the aid workers were killed in Gaza. Now, if you missed the story, listen to this. There are 15 paramedics and emergency responders who were shot dead. This was in March, on the 23rd of March. They were shot dead by the Israeli soldiers. And after they were shot dead, 15 of them, they were buried in a shallow grave. Their bodies were found a week later by officials from the United Nations and the Palestinian Red Crescent. Another man, my understanding is that is still missing. You get that? These are aid workers in Gaza. Paramedics and emergency responders. The Israeli defense comes, kills them, 15 of them, buries them in a shallow grave. The military then comes back. So once these bodies are found, the military comes and says, well, we opened fire on vehicles of these aid workers because they were approaching us in a suspicious manner in the dark, and they didn't have lights on or markings. That was their explanation. Which you probably pause and think, that makes sense, shame. Maybe they were worried that maybe those are Hamas militants who were in those vehicles and posing as aid workers. That's what the Israeli defense said. These people were driving these cars in the dark, their lights were off, there were no markings. That's why we opened fire. Except that's not true. That is a story that they stuck by until a video has emerged. There's a video now that has been recovered from the mobile phone of one of the dead men. It's been published now. You can go check it out on social media. CNN has posted it, I think Sky News, Al Jazeera, it's everywhere. And that video shows emergency workers in their uniforms. It shows these emergency workers in vehicles that are clearly marked. These ambulances are clearly marked. And they are fire trucks. And their lights are on. That's not what the Israeli Defense Force said. They said these people were coming in the dark, lights are off, their cars are not even marked. So that was suspicious for us. That's why we opened fire. But a video contradicts their story. You can see that these people are wearing uniform. You can see in the video that the ambulances are marked, their fire trucks are marked, their lights are on. And yet these people were killed by these soldiers. And the IDF now says, we mistakenly identified this convoy of aid workers as a threat. That's it. They originally claimed that even their own investigation, because they claimed to have done an investigation, they said our investigation found that the vehicles did not have any headlights or emergency signals and were therefore targeted as they looked suspicious. And they were also asked about why the bodies were buried in a mass grave. And the IDF said, we do this as a regular practice to prevent wild dogs and other animals from eating the corpses. And the IDF could not explain why the ambulances were also buried. It's just so shocking that this is not the first time that the Israeli Defense Force, quote unquote, mistakenly kills people there in Gaza. It's actually quite sad. And what's sad about this is that nothing is going to happen to Israel. The United Nations will continue to condemn this, but nothing will happen. There will be no accountability whatsoever. In fact, do a simple thing now. Go on your Google now and check how many times the Israeli Defense Force has mistakenly killed people in Gaza and what happened afterwards. Just Google Israel apologizes for killing people in Gaza or mistakenly killing people and check how many stories come up. Remember there was a time when the IDF chief apologized. This was sometime last year for an airstrike that left 7 humanitarian workers dead. Remember that?
I want to be very clear. The strike was not carried out with the intention of harming WCK aid workers. This incident was a grave mistake. Israel is at a war with Hamas, not with the people of Gaza. We are sorry for the unintentional harm to the members of WCK.
That was an apology last year, but that's not the only one. There was a time that the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu acknowledged that a tragic mistake had been made. This was sometime in May last year, after an Israeli airstrike in the southern Gaza city of Rafah set fire to a tent camp housing displaced Palestinians and killed at least 45 people. And this was the response from Benjamin Netanyahu.
In Rafah, we already evacuated about 1 million non-combatant residents. And despite our utmost effort not to harm non-combatants, something unfortunately went tragically wrong. We are investigating the incident and will reach conclusions because this is our policy.
Yeah, the sad thing is that we live in a world where it's animal farm. Even the US, Joe Biden, when he was president last year, at some point criticized the Israeli Defense Force for these mistaken killings that are happening in Gaza. But did that stop the US from sending arms to Israel to fight in Gaza? No, it didn't. It didn't stop them from sending military packages, I should say. The United Nations came out and said, this is unacceptable. What do you think that's going to do? Nothing. What we are witnessing, where aid workers are now falling victim, is actually quite sad.
Morning, Clement and 702 listeners. I think the IDF terrorists, not only did they kill the aid workers, but they also buried their ambulances. They had bulldozers that buried the dead bodies with the ambulances. Now, if that was a mistake, as they claim, they wouldn't have buried the ambulances and what, because those should have been used for further investigation. So they were trying to hide their criminal deeds, but I mean, it's not news. That's what they're doing all the time. Thank you.
It's 9:30.
Your voice,
Your station.
your open line
Walk the talk with Clement Manyathela.
on 702.
25 minutes before 10 o'clock. This is the 702 open line. Your calls on 011-883-0702. You can send your WhatsApps on 072-702-1702. Let's start with your WhatsApps.
Morning, Clem. Tato here. I am not so shocked by the state of Israel. I'm more shocked by you being shocked at what has happened with these aid workers. I mean, it's right up the alley, what happened. In fact, I'd like to say shame on the world for watching what's been happening in that area of the world for the last 60, 70 years and nothing happened. Land slowly being occupied and nothing happening. People being murdered, nothing happening. 200 plus journalists have died over the last year and a half, nothing happening. Aid workers have been murdered, the ambulance buried, which is surely a war crime, but nothing will happen. So actually shame on the world. Any other state do this, they'd be sanctioned right up the yazoo. Shame on you.
That's true. That is absolutely true. We are witnessing what's happening in the Middle East and the multilateral, because, it's shame on the world, right? Because the world, you could argue, are represented or is represented through this multilateral organization, the United Nations, which I honestly think it has fundamentally failed. It has been useless in as far as protecting the human rights of people who live in countries that are not powerful, with the crimes that are perpetrated against them by countries that are aligned to powerful countries in the United Nations Security Council. Because what rules there is a brotherhood. It's allyship. Doesn't matter what you are doing, whether it's immoral, whether it's a genocide, whether it's inhuman. The fact that I am friends with you and you are our greatest ally, I can protect you. I am not going to vote for crucial reports, crucial resolutions that are going to see to it that there's justice, or that are going to see to it that there's protection of human rights. That is what's happening now in the United Nations Security Council. You've got the big 5 countries that can veto anything. So I agree with you, Tato. Shame on the world. But also shame on the United Nations. After World War II, to avoid us going through that path again, that is why these multilateral organizations were formed. Because we don't want to go through that path. We're an evolved world that must find different ways to raise issues, to have conflict with each other. And yes, the United Nations realizes that you can't say there's never going to be war, but even in war, there are rules. And Israel has violated the rules of war. How many times? And what's happened to them? I don't know. And yes, I am shocked, Tato, because I can't rationalize this anymore. It still shocks me. And if it happens again tomorrow, I'm probably going to be just as shocked, because I really struggle to figure out what is it? What is it about this country that those in power, those at the United Nations can't do much? Even the United States itself always proclaims Israel is our greatest ally, which is fine. But even your friend, when your friend does wrong, when your brother does wrong, you have a responsibility to call them out. And now you've got Donald Trump saying, yeah, we want to turn that Gaza into a resort. Those people must go be refugees somewhere else. Going to Jordan and going to Egypt will turn that place. It's going to be so beautiful. Can you imagine if any other president had said that? Oh, I'm just going to take over this place and make it. Can you imagine those comments? Imagine our president says that about Mozambique. Oh, even forget Mozambique. Says that about France. Says that about Madagascar. Whatever country. That would be a scandal. There would be condemnation left, right, center. Oh, but Trump can say it. Oh, but Israel can go and violate international law. They can go violate the rules of war. They can go kill people that are innocent, that are aid workers, and just claim, oh, sorry, it was a mistake. And then they'll lie about it first. Oh, these people were coming to us suspiciously. Video images. Oh, sorry, it was a mistake. I'm just tired of hearing Israel apologize for killing innocent civilians, innocent workers.
Good morning, Clement. On the Israeli issue, I think language matters, and I think we need to stop saying mistakenly killed people, especially with the journalists in Gaza. It's always targeted. I mean, last week there were 2 journalists who the IDF said had lied and said were Hamas operatives and had said were being targeted. And eventually they did kill them. Last night again, 2 more journalists sleeping in a tent in Gaza, bombed, dead. It's not mistaken, it's targeted. Only when they get found out do they say it's mistaken. We need to call it what it is. It's targeted killings, and it's breaking international law on purpose. Thank you, Tsepo Soweto.
Koketso, you are calling us from the East Rand. Good morning.
Yes, morning, Clement.
Sure, Koketso. I'm well. I've been asking what interesting times you have lived through in a global context, and did you actually know that those would be defining and historical? What is it for you?
I mean, I think for me, Clement, is like what you're mentioning, right, about like currently we're living through a genocide. So just to give you context, when I was on holiday in the Czech Republic, I went with my mother to one of the Holocaust camps, the death camps by the Czech Republic. And we just toured it, just to see, because I took history in school. So I wanted to see, like, how could people actually have allowed the Holocaust to happen? Let me go there to get a better understanding. And I'm telling you, Clement, going there, it was just so grisly. Like how the camp is structured, how people were taken off, mercilessly shot, rounded up, killed, innocent people, right? And for me, it's similar to like what's happening now, like where, you look what's happening now in the Middle East, right? But people just carry on with life as if it's just normal, People will get horrified for like a bit, and then they get loud, almost like into like a sense of just, I don't know, some weird form of normalcy, and then they carry on with their lives, right, while this is happening. So it gave me that context to understand. So, when something like this that's so horrific is happening, we almost get lulled into just forgetting that it's happening. So look at how now this thing has been happening. It's nearly 2 years now that it's been happening. In October, it will be 2 years. But just look at how, like, nothing is happening. People are just carrying on with their lives, and nothing is shifting, nothing is changing. And it's really, really disturbing. But I think for me, it gives me that appreciation of how people could have allowed, like, evil systems to prevail, right? Like slavery, colonialism, apartheid for so long, and almost like normalizing it, where they don't see anything wrong, right? So, that thing of, as I said to you with the Holocaust, it gave me that context to say this is actually how good people could have allowed like such evil to prevail, because they were almost like lulled into like, I don't know, a form of normalcy, weird,
and there's some countries that could have spoken out. Here's a challenge though, Koketso. The challenge now is when you have countries that are speaking out against what is happening, now they get punished. Like, look at us now. South Africa goes to the ICJ. There's countries that go to the ICC. Now the US says, how dare you? If you really want to continue trading with us, if you want to keep AGOA, if you want us to continue giving you aid, then you better start rethinking your foreign policy in as far as that war in the Middle East is concerned. So that's where it goes now. Because it's no longer that we're saying people are quiet. When people are speaking out, now they get punished for it.
Yeah, but remember, Clement, even in the early days of apartheid, right, people were labeled terrorists for fighting an unjust system. So by the powers that be. So it's not surprising that at first they will see it as you're this terrorist or this person who is, in essence, that's why they say one person's freedom fighter is another person's terrorist. Because it's just all about who is in charge of the narrative, the prevailing narrative at the time. That's what's so tragic and sad about it.
Koketso in the East Rand, thank you so much for your thoughts. Wella, you're calling us from Reimsach. You want to talk about the president and the business community. Hi.
Hi, Clement. Clement, you know, I've been reading a lot of articles about various sectors of our society pleading for the continuation, obviously, of the GNU. But there's certain undertones that make me uncomfortable, and I think we must call them out because they are very subtle. For starters, it seems to me that competence is a skin color in this country. The exit of a party is going to lead to the destruction of this country. Those are the undertones that keep on coming in various ways. I mean, I've been reading reports, people saying, you know, the presence of this particular party has injected competence. As if their exit, there won't be competence, there'll be large-scale looting, corruption, etc. I'm very curious as well as to whether when the DA came into the GNU, has there been a gain of 1 trillion that will be lost when they exit? You know what I mean? I'm very curious. If you were to measure for these 8 months, did the JSE go up by 1 trillion or more? And now when they exit, oh no, the blacks are going to run the country. Oh, we are so dead. You know, one also needs to also question is what growth really has happened, even in the times when we had growth in this country in the Thabo Mbeki era. From what I understand, we're not building new factories that create growth. What's happening is that people are buying shares. Shares are moving between owners in the JSE. I'm yet to see really if there's been really trust by outside investors and build new capacity, new factories, real growth that can attract our people to be in jobs rather than the share price increasing and you are buying shares from another person and say that's growth. What are we protecting in this country exactly? And I think those are the questions maybe people in your space would, you know, you are in a privileged position to explore properly. What will really happen if they exit? Clearly, the increase in VAT, yes, albeit significant and we don't want it, but it's not the reason why they voted against the budget. It's because of exclusionist policies that they want.
Yeah, they were using it as a negotiating tool. And we've done that, we've had those conversations already on the show. I'm happy to go put up some links to the podcast. But I think you're raising some important points. The business community has now returned to the president because they are concerned. In fact, listen to what the president said, because this weekend he responded to that. He was asked a question by journalists. By the way, I should give a credit to the president. Like, he does a lot of Q&As when he is out at events, whether it's government events or ANC events. He takes an opportunity to come out, stand there and take questions, even those that are unrelated to what he's there to do. And I think that is really credit to the president, because we always often complain about him not making time to engage with journalists. And yes, I do think that family meetings it's not enough to just have him speak to us. Even when he makes these announcements, we must have an opportunity to engage with him. Journalists must have more opportunities to engage with the president. But there's just something I've really observed on how he's actually been responding to questions, even that are questions outside of what he's there to do. And that is really helpful because it helps us understand where his thinking is at as the number one citizen. Here's how he responded to a question about the letter that was sent by the business community to him.
And I can say that business does not dictate what happens. One in government does not dictate what happens in the ANC that I lead. We take our own decisions based on our considerations of everything that will advance the interests of our people. But of course, like any other citizen, they are entitled, as any citizen is entitled, to express their views, their wishes, and their fears. And all of us here as South Africans, we have views and fears and aspirations. So they too are entitled to do so. But in the end, I want it to be clear that the ANC will not be influenced by what business says. We are principally influenced by what our people say. And so we are not under pressure from business or whoever. If we are under any pressure, it is pressure that comes from our people and our people as a whole, not only ANC members. And the pressure that comes from our people is about poverty, it's about inequality and unemployment. And those are the issues that influence our decisions. And so therefore we have to heed what our people are saying. As regards what is happening in the United States, we have noted and we have seen some of those demonstrations, and these are matters that are happening in the United States. And we will therefore not be opining on what happens in other countries.
That's the president responding to the question about what the business community said to him in that letter, that if we have a lot to lose as a country if the GNU collapses. Someone actually reminded me of a conversation I had with Aaron Motsoaledi a few months ago on Face the Nation that involves the business community. This is what Aaron Motsoaledi says, the health minister.
I was there in that meeting when they told me, him point blank, that after the meeting he must announce that we are stopping the implementation of NHI.
Who told him that?
The BUSA, Business Unit South Africa.
But who tells the president what to do?
Exactly. And he was not very happy with that. He was very upset because they said they want him to stop and they negotiated, so you can't.
I mean, imagine BUSA, Business Leadership, Business Unity South Africa, in a meeting with the head of state about NHI, and they tell, well, on account of Aaron Motsoaledi, they tell the president point blank, you are going to leave this meeting and you're going to go and announce that NHI is out. You tell a president that after a meeting that's supposed to find common ground on the issue? That's basically what Aaron Motsoaledi was saying. What do you think gives, if really this is what happened, what do you think gives the business community that confidence and authority to want to instruct the president what to do after a meeting and what position to take? So bizarre.
Your voice.
Your station.
Your open line.
Walk the talk with Clement Manyathela
on 702.
It's 5 minutes now before 10 o'clock.
Clement, I'm shocked and horrified at what some people have to say about let the rand just drop and crash and we'll pick it up. Emotional reactions, not understanding what they're saying. Can I make a suggestion? Perhaps you should get a few economists to come do some talk shows to educate the listeners so that they can think and understand what the implications is of what they say and what they think. It's just shocking. I don't know where this country is going to go if that's the type of mentality that people have.
But are you shocked about John Steenhuisen as well? It's interesting that you get shocked by some listeners who, rightly so, you should be shocked when they say, this rands can't dictate, we'll pick it up. You're right. But why are you not talking about John Steenhuisen? Because that's how we started this conversation. Do you not think he needs to be educated about the financial markets, the global financial markets? Because he doesn't seem to understand it. He claims that R1 trillion wiped off the JSE solely because of the potential exclusion of the DA from the GNU. Is that someone who demonstrates an understanding of the markets? Or you're admitting that he's being disingenuous. He's trying to lie to South Africans and trying to weaponize the performance of the rand and the markets as they react to these fears of recession, to Donald Trump's tariffs. That's the context within which we saw the meltdown on the JSE. So maybe I should bring an economist, but that economist is not only teaching the listeners, that economist should also teach John Steenhuisen so he understands these global financial markets and their performance. It's 3 minutes before 10.